All right, rockstars, welcome to another no bullshit podcast for contractors. I'm here with Jeff Smither. We're going to talk about some killer, stuff today, but really the big focus is on the importance of recruiting processes. And in this case, why do you need to consider it? Where was Jeff before? Where is he now?
Until right now, this very moment, contractors have always been on their own, not as tradespeople, but being alone and knowing how to take their business to the next level. They call us working class, they call us blue collar. They say that we don't have the smarts to become the business owner that we're meant to be. That is such bullshit. You have the ability. You're more than any of that. The question really is, where do you get the insights that you need specific to contracting to systemize your business so you can get your profits to pay for your freedom? I'm Andrew Houston. I'm going to show you how to make more profits, how to get more control, how to get more freedom in the simplest, quickest way possible without any of that bullshit. Welcome to the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. Listen up, level up, and if you learn something, like the video, subscribe to the channel, change your business, change your life.
How are you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's awesome having you on. I love having, champion CEOs that have made progress. Hey, let's face it. Again, no bullshit. Like, you don't have everything all dialed in. In other words, you don't have, you're not at the end of your road. You're still going through your journey of improving your contracting business. Christ, man, even I'm doing the same thing even with Profit for Contractors. But let's talk about, what were some of the struggles that you had? Like if we go back in time when it comes to, sales regarding, the aspects of like saying, being able to say yes to the right people, say no to the right people. What were some of the challenges that you had? Let's go back in time.
Yeah. So, it started off and we basically said yes to everybody. There was no qualifying process. There was this fear of, if I don't get this job, then I don't know where the next one's coming from. So we would take everything and anything. We were also, everything was living up here in my head, and it was very difficult to keep all the moving pieces together. We were missing out on communications. We were losing out on jobs because of lack of communication. So, like you said, the process, dialing in on this process and having a system in place for it has been a game changer. Really alleviated a lot of stress and taken a lot of that fear away.
Yeah, you even mentioned there earlier about, you're talking about in the past where you lost a client. It was like a $70,000 or something customer. Tell us a little bit about, losing that client. Like, what does that have anything to do with the importance of putting in a sales process or even having a process for other things as well?
Yeah, so it was a referral from a neighbor who I've done some work for, trusted neighbor. Slam dunk referral. We were the first and only people they had talked to. It was a kitchen remodel. We go in there, we get our measurements, then we set up the kitchen cabinet designers to come in. Well, there was illness and XYZ, and through this 2-week period, there was no contact at all, no communication at all. So when I reached out and said, "Hey, the kitchen designer's coming to see you," he's like, "I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks. I don't really trust you to take this job. If this is your level of communication, the trust is gone. So, we're going to look elsewhere." And that was a serious kick in the gut, from a slam dunk kitchen remodel to losing faith entirely. Was a gut punch, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that we needed something, some automations in place, some systems, some processes to make sure that even if it's not me making a phone call or a text, that they're getting information, what's next, what to expect, XYZ. So, this CRM has been a great thing for us to alleviate that loss.
Awesome. And we'll get into that. I guess what I want everybody to think about. So if you're listening into this No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors, if it's not important for you, and I'm not trying to be an ass, if it's not important for you though, in the sense that if you've got your communication all dialed in, whether it's on the sales side or delivery side or production side or whatever side, if that's not of interest to you and you've got that all dialed in, then dial out on this and use your time more wisely. If you're looking at improving your communication, if you're looking at getting shit out of your head and into the hands of other people, not just other people, but actually having a process. I think one of the things, and then I'll move on, like I'll come back to this later, but to get back to you, Jeff, is just, it's not just about a system that you give to somebody else. It's about, what of the system can actually do heavy lifting for you outside of just it being a person, right? So we'll come back to that in just a second, but I want to ask you some difficult, well, I don't know if it's going to be a difficult question, but let's just pick off the mask and get real with some of this. How did that make you feel about, like, where did your emotions lie when it came to the person that gave you the referral? Because at some point they're going to find out, or did find out, that, hey, wait a second, I gave you a referral. It was, it's something that we trusted, that we had trust with, and I call it trust transference. That we transferred some of our trust. Where'd your head space go at regarding that?
It was brutal, man. So, this neighbor, he's a trusted neighbor, a guy, he's a HVAC guy too. I've brought him in for some consultations, and we have a good working relationship. And, with that trust blown, it's even still, I drive down the street, he's walking his dog. I still feel the need and urge to stop and say, dude, I'm so sorry for letting your son down. I'm sorry for letting you down. I explain the changes that we've made solely based on this one interaction. It was a real eye opener for me, and really depressing to know that I let these people down. And I don't like to have that feeling. I come at this whole thing from a very much a service perspective,
Mm.
rather than, hey, we're going to come swing a hammer. I like to provide a lot more than what I think a lot of contractors provide. And part of that service is communication. And I really let everyone down, and I still apologize for it.
I want everybody to, you know, think about what I'm about to say. We don't, I really believe that and this is one of the reasons we're so passionate about having contractors, because I really believe that most contractors are great people. And what do I mean by that? I mean, Jeff, you didn't wake up in the morning and go, man, you know what? Communication, whatever, you didn't wake up and go, I don't want to take care of this referral. Like, you didn't wake up intentionally trying to sabotage, this relationship, even, with your neighbor, or this referral. It's not our intent, everybody. So I want you to get that straight. It's not that even when you don't want this to happen, even when you were so passionate about the importance of communication, you can't juggle all the balls. True.
Very.
So, if we look at this from a systems perspective, so one thing's a pro for contractors, so tell us a little about your journey of what did you get? And guys, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to pitch this in the sense of, if this is something that you're interested in, then you can reach out to us. But I want to make sure that this is more from the perspective of, like, what did you get put in place? How's it look now? And how's it so different from where you were at? So let's talk a little bit about this journey with Profit Contractors. So I know you're I know you're a champion CEO. So you're engaged with us, as far as getting help on that front. Tell us a little bit about this journey that you had with, our team, and the CRM and the VA and things of that nature.
Yeah, so the CRM it's always been something kind of on the mind, but it's so much bigger than and so much out of the scope of what I'm familiar with.
Right.
And it was on a coaching call or a group call with Jay, and he
Yeah.
started talking about how he spent over $100,000 on CRMs, and he's tested these waters, and over 10 or plus years, he's really figured out what kind of works and what doesn't. At that point, I think I reached out to him privately and was like, Jay, I need a little help with the CRM. We've done some research. We had actually signed up for a free trial with HubSpot. We've done a few things, and we leveraged his experience and knowledge on the CRMs to kind of get some insight. He made some suggestions, and then he made an offer for him to build a ground up CRM for us. And we talked about what we needed. We talked about what we wanted to have happen, and he said we can do that. So
Awesome.
we turned it over to Jay, and they've put together just an incredible system for us to keep track of the sales process and so much more.
Love it. So, like, let's, like, and you might not know the answer to this, but let's just put something into perspective. Roughly how many steps would you say are involved in your new, PFC CRM sales process? Like, roughly how many steps? Five,
Currently, probably
ten,
like 9 or 10,
right? 9 or 10, right? So, like, imagine everybody listening in. A lot of people, if I say, "Hey, what's your sales process?" What do you think most contractors would say?
3 or 4,
Well, they
maybe
don't. A
a phone
lot
call,
of
an
them would.
email.
I don't even have a sales process.
Oh, sure.
right? Like, what do you mean sales process? I mean, we get a lead, I give them a call. Like, okay, what's the time sensitivity between like when you first interact with them and when your admin or whatever, engages with them? I don't know. Okay. When do you actually decide to go out, or when it's a worthy enough prospect? Oh, I don't know. Oh, so do you have a filtering system? Like, no, I don't know. I don't like these 9 or 10 steps. They're critical steps. Would you agree?
I do agree.
Mhm. And they're in sequence, right?
They're in sequence and they are automated.
Right. So if you take a look at this, they're in sequence and they're automated. What does that mean? Somebody means like what do you mean they're automated?
We have a few touches that we have to make personally, but outside of that, we drag a contact from one section to another, and it takes the next 3 steps over, and then we might have a drag for one other section, and it takes the next 3 steps over. So there's a few human touches that are required, but a lot of the emails that get sent out or text messages or combination of both, because people use different mediums for
Right,
communication, so it
right,
covers all the bases. And we I don't say inundate them with information, but we keep them apprised of what's going on, where the estimate's at, where the design is at, where they're at in the process, and they're aware, they are communicated with, and they know um, what's going on. And I think that that level of information is required when you're asking people for 50,000, 100, $200,000 to do a job for them. They need information, and having that kind of taken off of our plate allows us to do a lot more on the back end, rather than just sending texts and emails.
beautiful. So everybody listening in, I want you to understand having a system in place. This comes back to one of my original comments. It's not about having a 10 step, let's say it's a 10 step sales process. It's not about having a person, a real person being Jeff or his admin or VA or whatever, touching all 10. I want you to understand that this is what leverage is, right? You put in a dollar, you get $3 back, right? Or in this case, you put in an activity and multiple things happen with it. You having to touch it. That's what you want in your contract. Okay. I used to build automation lines. Jeff, I don't know if you knew this, but I used to build automation lines. And that's a prime example. It's like we want to create an automation, right? You hit the start button, say it's a bottling line for beer or whatever, and you load up the bottles. You don't go and individually fill each one. That's what automation does, right? And at the end, it automatically packages it. Now you need some guy with a forklift to lift up those cases of beer and what have you, but most of the process is automated. And what that delivers is consistency. And there's something else it does. Let me ask Jeff this question. How would this help you differentiate you from the competition?
I think it's just a really clean visual reminder that, hey, these guys are pros. All the
Right.
emails that sent are branded, they're well worded, there's clickable links, it's just really clean and seamless. um it's professional.
Love it. It's professional, right? So everybody understand this. If you've ever experienced this, Jeff, tell me if you can relate to this. Okay. I know I can. A lot of our champion CEOs that come to us, they can relate to this. When we have the time, most contractors, they're the head salesperson or the salesperson, okay, for the company. Okay. But most contractors, they love doing sales. Okay. Do you love doing sales, Jeff?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Right. You've been doing it, like I think you said, since you were born, right? You came out of the womb, you're a salesperson. Okay. So here's the thing, though, everybody. You'd rather have good consistency as far as good communication versus great communication when you have the time, things have slowed down. Now you're like, oh, I can promise the world, I'm going to engage with these people at this level. And then, oh, it's busy. Oh, shit. Now I'm still getting referrals from people, but oh, now I'm dropping the balls. Now, what do I mean by that, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, when you've got 100 balls in the air, it's hard to focus on a communication ball when you've got 6 different job sites going and quality to control. I mean, communication can easily take a back seat to actual work. Not that communication isn't work, but site work. Making sure that projects are moving forward. But the communication up front is huge. For example, I lost a big kitchen because just a 2 week period without speaking to them at all. We were
Right.
busy. It was easy to forget. It got missed, and that trust was broken.
Well, and the thing is, everybody, that especially on the referral side, like a lot of any good contractor gets referrals. And if you blow that up, in other words, if you, and it's not intent, it wasn't Jeff's intention, okay, to have have the referral source, the neighbor, experience this. Oh shit, I gave a referral and now Jeff didn't follow through on it. That's not our intention, okay? But the nice thing about having a system, whether it's a sales process or CRM or marketing or whatever, it allows us to manage our capacity. So, in a lot, in a more structured, stable, scalable way. What do I mean by that, Jeff?
You know what? When things are kind of taken off your plate, you take that hat off and you give it to the CRM. That gives you more room to build maybe other systems or develop team members or work on quality checklists or whatever else it is. If you're not spending 2 hours a day working on communication and emails and making sure that every box is checked, that's 2 hours a day you can be doing something else, and that's how you scale.
Totally. And here's the thing, you know, with a system, you're able to test and measure. Whereas when it's in your head, it's really difficult to do that. So, like Jeff, is this 10, let's say it's the 10-step sales process. How does that allow you to leverage where there's opportunities for improvement or where things are really working well?
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to visualize on the dashboard with the CRM.
Okay, let's
So
talk
it's
about this
really
talk about the dashboard a bit. What's this dashboard look like and what's it do for you?
it's clean. It's got all of our steps chronologically organized. It's got the contacts. You can click on the contact. It pulls up notes. It pulls up their form submission that we have a questionnaire they fill out for qualifying. You have everything at the tip of your fingers in one spot rather than going back and checking an email, going to this other website to find something. It's all put together right in front of you and really easy to track and to see. We've already made a few changes to our steps and our processes based on, oh, this is not really necessary, or we can combine these to kind of simplify things. So, that's part of the testing and measuring. We're testing it, we're measuring, seeing what works and what doesn't, and then, making some changes. And, I think it'll be continual system because it handles so much right now. It just kind of is doing our sales,
Yeah.
but it does. I see what it can do, and we're just going to keep building on it and making it
Love it.
bigger and better.
I love it. So, we got this assistant, right? Administrator, what have you. How much time, maybe just, before we wrap up, like what would be a few things that now is out of your head into the hands of this administrator or admin person that you were doing that you're not having to do now?
Oh gosh, I mean a discovery call and like a follow up. That's about it. Everything else is handled by the VA and by the system itself.
Like what?
Uh, oh gosh, the questionnaire, keeping warm sequence, the asking for referrals. It's all done for us.
I love it. How much time would you say that if you look at the amount of time that you spent thinking about all these things, juggling all these balls, inclusive of all these things that you've been able to delegate. Now you're only touching two things. How much time has that saved you as far as hours?
I would say at least 10 hours a week.
Like everybody listening to that. So 10 hours a week, and you're able to filter fast. You're able to tell us a little bit about how does this enable you to say yes to the right people and no to the people that you shouldn't, that you were saying yes to.
Still working on the no part.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
still
That's
working
hard.
on
That's
the
a
no
tough one.
part.
We want
It
to help
is.
everybody, right?
It is, and especially coming from a kind of a service background, I feel the obligation almost. But at the end of the day, I understand that this is a business, and to be successful, I've got to say no. And having everything here has certainly given me much more of an awareness on who we can say yes and no to.
Mhm.
So just again, that visual, that dashboard, all of it right there in front of me is really giving me empowered me to be able to understand who my client is before I ever set up a site visit. And we have certainly not spun our wheels on at least a half a dozen site visits in the last month based on, our filtering system and the CRM.
Wow. How much time do you think those site visits would have added up to first?
Another 10 hours.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So here's the thing. And one of the things about the power of the system is that it doesn't just empower you to say no or yes to the right people. It empowers your admin person, correct? To help filter as well. Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, if somebody says, "Hey, we need some tile around our fireplace," that's not our job. Unless they want their whole living room done.
Totally. Totally. Now we look down the road. Okay, Jeff, your business is growing. One of the things that this sales process allows or feeds is stability. Okay, so that we have consistency in how we communicate, consistency in getting back to people, consistency in getting sales. True.
Yep.
Okay. So now we look now next level in the contractor's ladder of success is scaling. So how would this allow you to, say down the road, and look, one of the nicest things about getting your contracting business running without you is that if you want to do sales and do the stuff that you find is fun, yeah, you can keep doing that so long as the rest of the business is running. But let's say we were to get to the point where you want to bring in a salesperson, okay? Maybe junior, maybe senior. How would this process help bring them in a scalable way?
Because it's a process. We can look at it, we can read the steps, say this is A to Z, what you
Right.
need to do step by step. It's laid out for you. Here's the map.
Mhm.
Follow the map and you'll get to your destination. I mean, when it's lined out and again, not up here, when it's simple and approachable, you can teach anyone to do it.
Love it. So everybody listening in, like you got to understand, like you have so much in your head, and I understand that contractors have so much in their head because they have to have it in their head for where they're at. But you can get it out of your head. You can get into the hands of other people. You can enable yourself to have a system that's actually better than the system you have in your head because the system in your head gets forgotten. The system in your head gets overloaded. The system in your head gets anxiety. It gets all these different variables. Okay. And biggest one is you being just a person, whereas the system is structured. It allows it to be delegated, it allows it to be measured. So, Jeff, are you tracking your conversion rate at each step?
Not yet. It's still pretty fresh, so we
Okay.
still have some things that we're working on, but that is something that is a measurable aspect of it, and it's something that we'll be dialing in on.
I love it. So, I want everybody to understand where that was going. So, one of the advantages that Jeff has is that down the road, what he'll be able to do quite quickly is he'll be able to test and measure the conversion rate at, say, there's 10 steps in the sales process. So, he'll be able to know what the conversion rate is from the very first step to every one of the steps getting to number 10, which is obviously landing the client. Okay. Now, what the advantage of that to let you guys know is it allows you to make adjustments to improve things. In other words, if you don't test and measure things, you don't have data, then in essence, it's almost impossible for you to improve those things if you don't have the information to leverage. Right, Jeff?
Yep.
Okay. So Jeff was to bring in a salesperson, say this down the road, or say, the admin graduates and moves up and she's gonna delegate some of these tasks. We can then use that as a transitionary plan to know like here's what the bar is, from this point to this point from a conversion perspective, right? And that allows us to properly onboard people, allows us to set targets. And the other thing that's super powerful, Jeff, that this will eventually allow you to do, it allows you to massively take back control of forecasting your workload, right? Your workflow, right? I call it lead flow, deal flow, workflow. So you'll be able to know, hey, we have these many leads in the hopper based upon our average conversion rate at each one of these stages. Hey, I know we're going to roughly land this much work. Now, how powerful would that be for you, Jeff?
That'd be awesome. I mean, that just allows you to kind of dial in on financials. If you're closing too much, you can raise your prices. If you're not closing enough, you can tune things, you can fine
Right.
tune things, and make it work for you and get yourself working a little bit less.
Exactly. Right. And at the same token, you can know in advance, could be, a month or two in advance, you can know by the amount of leads you're getting that you can, like you said, up your filter. At the same token, know, hey, man, here's how much work we currently have. Hey, we're gonna need a couple of guys in a couple of months from now. Instead of like, oh my God, I need a guy tomorrow. Like that's again back to stability instead of like constantly being in this reactionary mode of too much work, not enough work, right? Cool. Love it, man. So anything else on the admin side? Let's say anything else did you want to talk a little bit about that, like how that's working out for you as far as delegating some of these things?
I think I really lucked out. My VA is a total rock star. So I hope everyone can find a VA as dedicated and loyal as the one that I found. It took me a few to get to him, but he's rocking and rolling now, and I couldn't be happier.
Okay, is that a VA that you got yourself, or is that VA through PFC, or what tell us a
I
little bit?
Yeah, I found him online.
Right.
Yeah.
So, this is a virtual assistant that actually allows you to, that's managing the sales process that we put in place for you, right?
Yep.
Okay, dude. So if there was one or two things you would recommend, somebody's listening in, they're like, man, I don't have a sales process. I mean, where do I start? Or like, would you what would be your one or two last words of wisdom?
What really got me into the sales process, and I got the paperwork right here, was another PFC member. I can't remember exactly who I talked to, but they kind of gave me an outline on their sales process. And I was like, wow, this is really well thought out. This is a good kind of structure to follow. And then, trying to put it together, I just realized that it was going to take us forever to set up a HubSpot, to find somebody who can build it for us. And then, it was just I think an incredible timing coincidence that I had overheard Jay talk about this potential new thing, and I reached out to him, and it's been great, and I'm
Beautiful.
really looking forward to seeing what more it can do.
Awesome. All right, man. Listen, everybody listening in, I want to tell you this. I think the biggest thing I would get everybody to consider is don't think that you need to know it all. Jeff, you're not a software expert. I'm not a software expert, right? Don't try and do all the heavy lifting. You don't need to know all this software. You don't need to know exactly, oh my God, exactly what your sales process is, in this very moment. But if you work with people that know how to do this, you can have a automated system without you having to be some software expert. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
100%.
Right? Because I mean, I think you mentioned earlier, like, hey man, I'm not a software master, right? So,
Not even close.
and a lot of contractors, correct me if I'm wrong, that you talk to, that I've talked to as well, they have this fear of like of technology. Did you have that as well?
Not so much as just a overwhelm. You see
Overwhelmed.
these things, and you get these ads and these emails, and there's so many options out there. It's how do you decide on, what works, what's best? How do
Yeah,
they work with each other? And, having someone take that off my plate was amazing.
totally, man. Awesome. Okay, guys, look, do things differently. Get stuff out of your head, whether it's a sales, process, whether it's your marketing process or your hiring process. But you need to have systems in place. Systems times people equals results. Don't do it alone. Jeff's gotten more time back to work on higher value things. At the same token, deliver better communication to his prospects. Make his referrals raving fans. In other words, so his referrals know, hey, man, if I give you a referral, it's going to be taken care of. Ask yourself this question: what's it costing you not to have these systems in place? What's it costing you as far as your referral sources, your relationships, your communication with people? Focus more on consistency and leveraging others and leveraging software to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. That's it for another No Bullshit podcast. Thanks, brother. Catch you later,
Thanks, Andrew.
bro. Ciao.
Hey, rock stars, thank you for watching the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. And if you're serious about growing and need help, click on the link below. Myself and my team would love to help and give you the necessary tools so you can take your contracting business to the next level. And remember, dominate, delegate, and deliver.